Morning Peace Fellowship. Let's see here. I can imagine you all, can you see my face?
Yes.
I can imagine you all in the challenging period of discernment, deciding on what to name your congregation some years ago. You, like I, lived through the Cold War when there were many stealth attacks by the United States on other countries, many of them small and unable to defend themselves from the takeovers. One of these countries, Nicaragua, was controlled by our government over a period of 45 years, during which the vast majority of the population did not have access to health care or education. The population at the time was 2.5 million people. The Nicaraguan Revolution took place over many years and was finally successful in overthrowing the US puppet dictator Anastasio Somoza in 1979, then followed the Contra War to overthrow this revolution. The US Congress funded support for the counter-revolutionaries, the Contra. Some of you probably were part of the intense period of protests during the 1980s by activists like us to halt this support. Gail Ferris, who lives nearby in North Raleigh, led these efforts in this area of the country. We and the other peace-loving people of the world finally brought the funding of the Contra War to an end. During this period, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee created a study guide, Journey to Understanding, to help UU congregations understand many issues of US imperialism, and in particular, those of Central America. I have started my talk today as I have because the question I am most often asked by those who come to San Ramon, Nicaragua on an eco tour is, why did you start this project? My husband and I and a group who had participated in the Journey to Understanding studies decided we needed to show the people of Nicaragua we cared for them and supported their desire for peace and autonomy. We asked Witness for Peace, an organization founded by Gail Ferris and others, to help us find a solidarity partner, and they suggested San Ramon because the people, although some of the poorest in the country, were determined to improve. The quality of life for people living in their rural mountainous we were determined to improve the quality of life for people living in their rural mountainous county. A group of us went there 27 years ago to express our desire to form ties of peace and friendship with them. We started out working with local people to rebuild a children's playground from a pile of rusting play equipment. As you might imagine, the fabulous result was a revelation to all of us, North Americans and Nicaraguans alike. The local children who had been watching us intently hopped on the swings and sliding board, making up this new playground with squeals of pleasure. Over time, as we raised money to help communities of this rural mountainous county build schools, latrine, and water projects built by the communities themselves, we realized that the economy of San Ramon was going nowhere. Unemployment was widespread, and people were subsisting year after year on jobs such as picking coffee and growing corn and beans. My husband and I had served in the Peace Corps in Africa, and we learned then that with outside-the-box thinking, we could make things happen that would benefit the communities we serve. Years later, now back home and involved in our partnership with San Ramon, we got to thinking that tourism was an industry that employed more people worldwide than any other industry. We started thinking about the idea of creating a tourism project in San Ramon that would be awesome enough to attract visitors who would bring their dollars to purchase art painted by the young artists of San Ramon, pay for stays in the homes of local families, and pay for guides to show them the miracles of the tropical rainforest. These ideas were being studied in colleges and called sustainable tourism and community-supported tourism. But we were in the vanguard of creating such a place with the support of the local people who had never even heard of the word tourist and had no idea why people from the richest country on earth would want to visit them. We promised them that we thought it was worth a try, and so we started constructing an eco-lodge in the mountains of San Ramon that quickly won a number of international awards for sustainable tourism. My husband, Richard, who is both an architect and building contractor, as well as an expert in photovoltaic electric generation and even a licensed plumber, took charge of most of the construction, but local folks did the construction work. And then the Eco Lodge, whose staff were people who walked to the lodge from their rural homes and who were learning how to prepare and serve wonderful meals, how to show tourists to spot the wealth of tropical wildlife they themselves took for granted, how to make musical and dance performances that please visitors, got our name into the tourist guidebooks and onto the internet, and the project really took off. Our tourism project and Finca Esperanza Verde Eco Lodge and Coffee Farm became a major source of income and employment in San Ramon and spawned many other tourism-oriented enterprises. One of the joys we have experienced through the 20 years of our tourism project is how people of San Ramon have risen to the challenge of relating to people in an outgoing, friendly fashion, where at the beginning they tended to be shy. They also feel immense pride that they were able to create something that garners praise from people from foreign lands and has won many international awards. One of our accomplishments with the Eco Lodge was finding a buyer to purchase this exquisite place who wanted to continue running it in the same fashion we had, employing local people and growing the coffee organically, and using solar and hydroelectric power to provide electricity. This sale happened in 2017. There was a typical reaction to the experience. Here is a typical reaction to the experience of being in San Ramon for a week on a cultural immersion eco tour. The views from the cloud forest at the coffee farm were as beautiful as anything I have ever seen. Nicaraguans take their cultural heritage seriously, and children begin learning traditional dances in kindergarten. We were lucky enough to see children and adults dance and to hear live traditional music. The colors were incomparable. Birds, flowers, houses, murals, clothing, traditional weaving. But best of all, the people are warm, kind, open, and generous. I love seeing the sister communities' various projects in action and learning about making coffee, cacao, and chocolate, making tortillas and naka tamales, making jewelry from seeds, weaving with a traditional backstrap loom. Our organization, Sister Communities of San Ramon, Nicaragua, includes support from UU congregations, including Unitarian Coastal Fellowship in Morehead City, Community Church of Chapel Hill, UU, UUFR, ERUF, and a number of schools, individuals, and families. Support often comes in the form of an annual contribution to one of San Ramon's 78 primary schools and organizing an eco tour to visit San Ramon. Support also comes from our monthly coffee sales that Peace Fellowship is part of. We thank you so very much. This year, there were only 2 eco tours because of concerns about political turmoil in Nicaragua. The political turmoil sadly is caused by the revolutionary leader from 1979, Daniel Ortega, taking over control of the National Assembly, Electoral Council, and by other means that rob Nicaraguan citizens of their right to free and fair elections and free and fair press. People who were former revolutionaries are now protesting current developments. The loss of tourism company to all the small businesses that participated in the income stream from tourism in San Ramon is a great tragedy for all, as the money generated from tourism stayed largely in the local community and was recycled over and over many times. One of our dreams in creating sustainable tourism was that people would see the possibilities of creating their own businesses, and we were overjoyed to see how many did. A group of women were given the chance to create the business of making handmade paper. They learned this trade by visiting a group of women in another part of the country who had learned through a project at the United Nations Development Program focused on craft development. The original group of women were asked by the group of San Ramon women to teach them, part of the original grant being to teach others. The original group, however, did not have the advantage of having groups of tourists arrive on an annual basis to buy the cards they made, and their business never took off. The women in San Ramon, however, had the opposite experience. In fact, they could hardly keep up with demand from the many eco-tours who were enchanted with their crafts. They followed up on a suggestion I made to them to take samples of their crafts to a tourism hotspot, which continues to buy their crafts after many years. These women are hardworking, creative, and reliable, for which they receive praise from this and other shops. They are deservedly very proud of being businesslike and appreciated. When our first tourist group came in 2000, there weren't many businesses and performance groups to provide enough diversion for our groups. But over the years, the locals plucked up their courage to ask us if we would be interested in including them in the program. The business of one of these was grinding corn for tortilla vendors and homemakers. When the young tourist guides told us that this business owner had asked to be paid for allowing our tourist groups to observe the process, the young tourist guides were appalled, while we were delighted and immediately included this business in our income stream. Some other locals bought small buses and started a business to provide transportation to our groups from the airport to San Ramon and other places nearby. The young tourist guides just mentioned was a bit of an experiment. They didn't speak English, and most of our visitors did not speak Spanish. But they were very excited with the opportunity we offered them and quickly organized themselves into a tourist guide club. Members researched the history of San Ramon, including visiting libraries and interviewing the people in San Ramon who were crucial to the founding of San Ramon as a municipality, which is a Latin American for county. These young folks were so entirely sincere, serious, and well-informed that they won the admiration of all the visitors, especially once we found some locals to translate who by various miracles had learned to speak English well. We hope that Peace Fellowship will come to visit San Ramon on an eco tour in 2022, when we think the political turmoil will be past. We can promise you an experience you will remember for a lifetime. In the meantime, the loss of income leaves the entrepreneurs who were part of our ecotourism business high and dry, just like people around the world due to Corona-19. Reverend John Saxon, who led the UU and Friends Cultural Immersion Eco Tour to San Ramon this past January, and I are available at any time to speak about forming an eco tour group. John has already said he would like to lead the UU and Friends Eco Tour again in 2022. In the meantime, we continue to raise money to support projects people in the community request our help to accomplish. There is an inspiring group of rural women who are on a quest to help rural families build their own latrines. We donate the materials, and the women show the families how to do the work. Another group that came to us for support 25 years ago runs a center for children with special needs. With the inspiration of physical therapists from the US, this organization welcomes children and their parents to visit the center once a week. Sister Communities funds the salaries of 2 Nicaraguan-trained physical therapists. It is a joy to see children who could not walk when they first came to the center learn to walk, and in some cases become enrolled in the public school. Sister Communities of San Ramon has an open door approach to community development initiatives proposed by local groups and communities, and we are overjoyed when a local group we support accomplishes their dreams. These many groups we support provide inspiration for others to improve the community of San Ramon in other ways they are passionate about. As you might sense from my talk, there is a lot of love shared between supporters in the US and people in San Ramon. We are a beloved community, and we invite Peace Fellowship to be part of it.
Thank you, Lonna. Would you like to entertain questions from members of the congregation?
Yes, I would love to.
One thing I want to point out, this is a bag of San Ramon coffee, which we use or were using when we were physically together. This was the coffee that you've been drinking every Sunday morning. And unfortunately, since we've not been here, we haven't had a need to reorder this. And I'm afraid whether or not that's also true of other congregations, and I hope that this isn't seriously impacting the economy of San Ramon, but I suspect that it probably has.
Yes, that's right. We continue our coffee sale, but not to the churches, not to the congregations. So we have a much reduced number of pounds that we roast every month.